Alright, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. You're in for a very special treat today. I was asked to speak at Hippocrates Health Institute in West Palm Beach, Florida the other day, and I filmed the presentation I gave. It was about a 2-hour presentation, and so it was really hard for me to try to reduce that into a 10-minute clip, and it just didn't happen. I couldn't even reduce it into 2 10-minute clips, so it's actually 3 10-minute clips. So this is really important information, and I guarantee you're going to enjoy it, and it's going to be definitely a worthwhile investment of 30 minutes of your time. You're going to take a lot and learn a lot from this video, probably more than any other raw food video on YouTube in my opinion. There's a lot of information, the culmination of my 15 years of experience in raw food. So stay tuned and let's go to first clip.
John Kohler is someone that I really adore. He's extremely knowledgeable about the raw food and living foods lifestyle, which he lives, and he talks at all the expos. He's brought some handouts. He's going to tell his story, and then he's going to give a talk, Not All Raw Food is Healthy. So, John Kohler.
Alright, thank you. I'll just first briefly go over just why I got into raw foods. And the reason for that was because I had a major health crisis. I always thought I ate a pretty healthy diet. You know, I was read my ingredient labels. By that time I had cut out red meat. This is after college. Early college actually, I gave up red meat. Stopped drinking alcohol when I joined a fraternity because I just saw the problems it caused. But what happened to me was actually I got spinal meningitis. And I remember just waking up one day and just like, it was like flu-like symptoms with a headache, and I just nauseated, and I remember taking Theraflu because I thought it was the flu, and I threw that up, and to this day Theraflu will just kind of make me ill if I smell it. And basically what happened, my parents had to drive an hour to pick me up to take me to the hospital because I just couldn't take myself, and I remember just passing out in the hospital waiting room, and then I remember just waking up in intensive care and like, whoa, what's going on? And I asked the doctor, what's going on? He's like, well, you have spinal meningitis. And I said, okay, well, when am I going to get out of here? Because, you know, my whole thing was, you know, you go to the doctors, they make you better, and you go home. Was my whole thing, how I thought things worked. And so the doctor told me, you know, I was in my 20s at that point, that you might not make it out of here alive. And I was like, well, you're going to do the best you can, right? He's like, yes. I said, but you got some medicine that'll fix me, right? He's like, no. And that's not a fun place to be when you're in your 20s, or at any age. I mean, especially when you're in your 20s. I hadn't like fallen in love, hadn't made the $1 million, hadn't lived that American dream that we're all supposed to live and, you know, make millions of dollars and all these things that maybe, you know, as I had a lot of time to think in the hospital, I thought about a lot of these things because I really thought, like, even if I had that $1 million, could I write the check, you know, doctor, you know, Mr. Doctor, $1 million, do not cash unless I walk out of here alive? I mean, would money have done me any good at that point? Absolutely not. So I like really thought like, wow, what good is money when I like almost I might not make it out of the hospital? To enjoy if I even had the money, which I didn't. So maybe what's really important is our health. And you know, we hear the saying all the time, health is our greatest wealth, and people really, I don't think, take it to heart because I mean, people put their health all the time in front of convenience. I see it every single day. What's the biggest way that people put convenience in front of their health every single day? And I bet almost everybody in here does it. Anybody have any guesses? Every single day, several times a day. Anybody have any guesses? Your cell phone. You're putting your convenience because, you know, in the olden days they had pagers and payphones. People would find a payphone when they got a page, use that, but now with the cell phone, yes, we could pick it up, we could talk on it, yes, we have instant accessibility for our business to stay in touch, to our loved ones, to business, whatever it is, but you know what? There's studies in Europe and you know, it's just like smoking was in the 60s and 70s. I mean, the companies know how bad it is for us, but they're suppressing information. And so, you know, you need to, you know, for that reason, I rarely ever use my cell phone. I have one for emergencies, and I got into it specifically for my health. There's many reasons people get into the raw foods diet, you know, it could be because they're vegan and it's the next logical step from being vegan to becoming a raw vegan, or you know, maybe they're a chef and they want to break out into some new industry, and you know, the chef department, you have to do something different to differentiate yourself. So if it's a chef that's in the conventional world, you know, I think there's a guy, Matt something, he was Matt Kenny, he was a regular chef, then he made a raw restaurant and a raw book, and now he's like big news in the raw movement. But see, his whole motivation was from the culinary perspective, but it's not always healthy. The reason why I came up for this talk today was because I was at a raw food treat in Portland, Oregon and they're doing it again this year, and I go every year. So if you're looking for one raw food event to go to, it'd be the one I recommend. It's called the Living in Raw Spirit Retreat in Molalla, Oregon. I was at my table for dinner one night, and it was and they bring guest chefs in from all over the country, and they made a dinner, and they brought out the first course, and the first course was like I don't know, I think it was some kind of carrot soup. And so I ate the soup, and right after I ate the soup, I got a headache. And then, you know, somebody else at my table said, hey, you know, I just ate the soup and I don't feel so good. And I saw somebody else get up after they ate the soup and start walking out. And I was like, I'm really curious by nature. I think that's one of the reasons why I've really excelled at raw foods. You need to be curious and always be inquisitive and ask questions, because if you just, you know, take things for granted, you know, information and things and knowledge changes. So you need to constantly be up on it. So anyways, I got up and asked the person, hey, what's going on? She's like, oh, I ate the soup and I don't feel well. And then I thought to myself, I'm like, this is a problem. This is not cool. We're at a raw, you know, health retreat or raw, you know, food retreat, and these things aren't supposed to happen. So I went into the kitchen and I asked the chef, I'm like, well, what was in the soup? Because I knew there had to be something in the soup that was giving people these ill effects. Because I'm really sensitive. I mean, if I eat things with non-organic things, I'll break out in a rash because our skin is the largest eliminatory organ, you know, just try to get out of me. So I really have to be careful and watch what I eat. So I went in there and he's going off the ingredients, you know, whatever, carrot, avocado, whatever it is, and then he says Bragg's liquid aminos. My experiences and my research and you know, being in a long time in raw foods, there's a big internet controversy many years ago, and you could find you know, you could just search on Bragg's not healthy or something, or Bragg's and MSG, and you'll see all the correspondence that came out way back then. And basically what happens is Bragg's has naturally occurring MSG, or monosodium glutamate. And so, you know, that we know MSG is not good for us, and so that's what gave me the headache, because I'm so hypersensitive. I mean, maybe if you're transitioning into raw food, it might be better than A1 steak sauce, but maybe, you know, something else might be even better than Bragg's. So then I, you know, talked to the guy about, you know, well, hey, maybe, did you know that Bragg's contains a naturally occurring MSG? I realized that these chefs that teach us the foods that we're supposed to eat, you know, maybe aren't coming from the health perspective, and they're teaching maybe not the best things to do, and then people see what they make and we try to emulate the chefs, because we all learn by modeling. When we were kids, you know, we learned to walk because we've seen our parents walk, you know, and that's how we learn in raw foods. We learn from, you know, what we're taught and what other people have done in the past. So I see a fundamental error in, you know, maybe spreading wrong information. I mean, another good example is in Giuliano's Raw Cooking. He's a famous chef. He uses things like maple syrup. Maple syrup is absolutely no way raw. I figured, man, how could I really make a difference at this event that I'm at? So I went back to my hotel room, or my cabin that night, and I thought long and hard, because the next day, it's really cool, I gave like 2 talks at that event, and then the last day, they have like a 1-hour session or 2-hour session where anybody at the event, whether you're a speaker or a participant, could have, basically they have a bulletin board, and you write down, like if you're a dance teacher, you could say, okay, at 2 o'clock today, because that's an open space time, I'm going to give a dance class in the, you know, big auditorium, or, you know, I give raw food talk, so I'm going to give a raw, I mean, whatever you want to give, there's space for that. So I figured, man, I could come up with a talk that really helps people determine if something's raw or not, if they haven't done the research. I mean, I've been out and doing this a long time, so I've done all the research on many of the different foods, and I know what's going on, but you know, I mean, everybody's not going to do the research because they're not inquisitive like me, but how could I teach somebody an easy set of skills for them to determine if any product is raw and or healthy or not? So I brainstormed all night, and this is what I came up with. So I'm going to share that with you today. And it's a really easy technique, and what it is basically is just, it's getting people to think for themselves, and we're really not taught to do that in our education system here. There are no raw food labeling laws. And so I'll say that again, there are no raw food labeling laws, which means anybody could put anything on, the name raw on anything, and they could sell it. And even if it's like roasted almonds could be labeled raw, but they're really roasted, is it illegal? It's absolutely not illegal to do that. Is it immoral and unethical? Absolutely. But you know, there's people out there that will do anything for the almighty dollar, because guess what? Their main motivation in life isn't health. It's, you know, having $1 million or whatever. So I brought a couple examples today. So here's one. It's sugar in the raw from Hawaii. But nonetheless, it's sugar in the raw. So you think, oh, this is raw sugar, I can eat it. But no, it's actually heat processed at higher than 118 degrees, and we don't want to eat it because it's really not good for us. And then I'm going to pick on this company because the name of their company is actually called Raw Revolution. And even in the title it says, organic live food bar. So wow, it's not even raw, but it's also alive and living. So let's check the ingredients out. Okay, ingredients, cashews. Okay, cashews, unless they're getting the really raw cashews, which I still wonder if they're really raw. They've been heat treated because there's some toxins in the shell, and that it would really be caustic to your fingers and mouth if you ate it. Agave nectar, and that's a big debate. You know, it may be raw, but if it is raw, it's probably not healthy. Date, those could be raw. Cocoa powder, processed with alkali. Okay, cocoa powder is basically the processed product of cacao, so that's totally been heated. Almond sprouted flax seeds. So if you're trying to be 100% raw and you just eat this, you blew your diet. All right, so you just finished part 1. Hope you got some good information in that. Please look to the related videos on the side for part number 2, which is the next part up.